Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Please take your seats. We're going to begin shortly. Watch behind you, Mike. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Please join me in welcoming our webcast viewers. My name is Colleen Kennedy, and I'm the Executive Director of the Canadian Club of Toronto. We're so grateful that you have all joined us today. In creating innovative and relevant programming, we strive to ensure not only a diversity of perspectives, but a diversity of speakers. Here, we offer access to dynamic political, business, and public figures, like today's guest speaker. Before I formally introduce him, let me give you a snapshot of some of our upcoming events. On Wednesday, May 23rd, we have a two-event day, a breakfast with the Premier of Nova Scotia, Stephen McNeil, and then a lunch. We have an incubator panel featuring some leaders of incubators talking to us about how they take startups to market giants. And on Tuesday, May 29th, we will feature the Minister of Trade, Francois Champagne, with the Minister of Industry and Economy from Israel, Eli Cohen. So we hope you might join us then as well. To order your tickets or to learn more about the club, you can visit us at canadianclub.org. You can also join the conversation via Twitter and Instagram by using CDNCLUBTO or following that hashtag. We'd love for you to join the conversation today. I want to express special thanks to today's sponsors. Bell, represented by Sanjay Suchdev. We have EY, represented by Eric Rawlinson. Oracle, represented by Franco Amalfi, and Rogers, represented by Stephen Van Binsberger. Thank you so much for your support. I also want to acknowledge the youth and young leaders we have in the room from the University of Waterloo's Department of School of Planning. Can you have a stand up? And we're so glad you're here. We expect questions from you, so we're looking forward to your questions. And now our guest speaker. Members and guests, don't forget, if you have a question, there are question cards on the table that our volunteers will collect, and we'll pose them to Mr. Kolm later. This month marks Michael Kolm's first anniversary as the City of Toronto's first ever Transformation Officer. The Transformation Office was established to help the city be more effective, efficient, and adaptable. The person tasked with making this change happen brings a solid background with him, leading firms like EY, PwC, and BDO Watson Limited. He worked with public sector clients to help them garner the benefits of business transformation. In speaking of his appointment, Mayor John Tory said he was confident that Mr. Kolm's vast experience would lead the city to a more modern and innovative public service. We're thrilled that Mr. Kolm is here to talk about his plans to transform our city. He is busy at work developing a smart city strategy. This includes the Canada's Smart Cities Challenge. If successful, millions of dollars could be injected into technology-based programs to enhance life in the city. We are keen to hear about that today. So, Mr. Kolm, without further ado, the Canadian Club of Toronto's podium is yours.
Thank you very much, Colleen. It's really an honor to be here. I can't tell you how many events. I've attended several events, but watched a lot of events, streamed. The opportunity to come and speak to everybody here today at the Canadian Club. It's just a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I'm really appreciative that you wanted to come and see us here today, that you wanted to hear a little bit more about Toronto's smart city aspirations. And actually, I'm going to talk to you also about what we're already doing as a smart city. But I really appreciate the opportunity. It's a real honor. Maybe I'll just start with just a quick question of the audience. How many people here are from Toronto or the GTA? So most of you. How many of you think that this is a great place to live? Right? I think pretty well everybody, right? Maybe even people who don't live here think it's a great place to live, right? How many of you think it's one of the best places in the world to live? Right? I agree. How many of you think we're a smart city? Yeah. So that's a common percentage. It's fairly low. You know, I'm going to do my best today to show you how we're smart in many ways, but I really want to do the other objective here is to really convince you that we're doing and we're going to do a lot to become a smarter city, and we're really excited about the opportunity to do that, but we're really especially excited about the opportunity to do it with you, right? Because we're not going to become a smarter city by doing stuff at City Hall, right? That's part of it. We're going to do things at City Hall, but we're going to become a smarter city by collaborating with the people in this room and the bigger ecosystem that we have here in Toronto, and the energy and then the enthusiasm. When everybody raises their hand and says we're one of the greatest places in the world to live, how do we keep it that way, right? How do we make it an even better place to live? So I want to start maybe with a little bit of a reflection and change gears a tiny bit. A little bit of a reflection on what happened 2.5 weeks ago on April 23rd. Of course, it was a beautiful, sunny day in Toronto. Unfortunately, the unthinkable happened. We had a terrible attack. I was actually working from home, taking care of one of my children was sick, working from home. Started to receive a barrage of Twitter updates and emails. Of course, I turned on the TV, I think like all of us did. Was glued to the television set, figuring out what's going on here. What's this attack? Is it a terrorist attack? What is it? Unfortunately, 10 souls were lost, and that was tragic. Many more people were injured. And I think we all held our kids a little bit closer that night. Those of us that have kids held them a little bit closer that night. So this was one of the worst attacks in Canadian history, and it was a really sad day and a really tragic day. Just seconds after the attack, our 911 call center blew up, right? As you can imagine. We had 1,206 calls, 873 of them were directly related to the van attack, right? And that was just in the first 2.5 hours after the attack, or 2 hours and 15 minutes, I should say, after the attack. After the callers called, they asked for an ambulance or medical assistance. Those calls then get transferred over to our, I want to get this right, Paramedic Services Communication Center. That was when 13-year veteran, advanced emergency medical dispatcher John Shirley rushed over to the tactical desk, took command of the event, and started prioritizing and getting organized around mobilizing resources. During those calls, John's medical dispatch team were working with civilians that were at the scene, helping them with triage, and they were setting up command points for paramedics as they arrived at the scene. Some of the callers were standing with victims who'd been hit by the van. Other callers were helping bystanders who were in shock and couldn't believe what had happened, right? This was a really intense situation. With the unprecedented devastation becoming clear, they stayed composed. John's team stayed composed. They didn't panic. They didn't get tunnel vision. They started using their tools, their data, and their connected technology to make decisions about how to respond to this terrible attack, right? I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge two incredible public servants that are here with us today. First, and he's been introduced at the head table here, is Veteran Commander Steve Veneris. And the second gentleman I just mentioned, emergency medical dispatcher John Shirley, is here with us today. If you gentlemen could stand, I'd just like to give you a round of applause. Thanks, gentlemen. It's a real pleasure and honor to work with you in the Toronto Public Service. And I know we're all really appreciative. So, we have excellent people. We do excellent work. But I want to stress that we do that in a smart city way already, right? And I'm going to explain how we do that. We are already world class. We have one of the best paramedic services in the world. So how is that possible? Yes, we have the best people, right? Yes, we have the best training, but we also have the best systems. We have the best data, and we have the best connected technology to make that a reality. So that's why I decided to tell that story and what that has to do with the smart city. So let's talk about how we do that, right? Let's use that case study. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, the Communications Center takes in response to calls. So this doesn't happen when there's an event. This is happening constantly and all the time. And we're using technology, we're using data to always be prepared, right? We're using, and of course we're using our training and our expertise as well. When something happens in the city, there are some fundamental steps, and I'm going to walk you through those steps because I think it's important you understand how we actually respond to this stuff. Calls come in, the emergency medical dispatcher confirms the location, a phone, and a phone number that they can call back if they lose contact with the caller, right? They then use a software called ProQA and data to follow a very sophisticated triage procedure to figure out what the priority is and what to do next, right? And by the way, that software, we incorporate data constantly and update that triage procedure based on new practices, research, and data that we've gathered ourselves and data that we share with other jurisdictions, right? Once that information is processed, the location of the call and the priority of the call is passed on to the dispatch system. Another software called Optima is then used as a decision support tool to recommend the closest or most appropriate paramedic and ambulance team to send to that location. Right? It relays that information to the dispatcher to make the final decision to dispatch the ambulance. The computer-aided system relays location and patient information to the responding paramedics using a mobile technology called MobiCAD, and then the paramedics are on their way to the scene. Once they arrive at the location, they assess the patient, provide initial treatment. The dispatcher uses a patient distribution system to distribute patients then to one of the 4 closest hospitals. Again, using data, what's going on in the whole system, basically to dispatch and make sure that that ambulance, that patient reaches the hospital as fast as possible and based on what needs that patient has. At the same time, all of this is happening, and this was happening 2.5 weeks ago, a predictive analytics operational dashboard is constantly managing all of the rest of the resources in the city. So the ambulances and teams are being redeployed to different parts of the city as demand shifts from different areas of the city to make sure that if there was another attack or if there's another incident, that we're ready and able to respond to that additional incident. So this is really important. So why do I tell you all this, right? And I know that was a long description. I think it's important to understand, right? Why do I tell you all of this? We're already using connected technology and data every day to save lives. And we did it, most importantly, on that terrible day in Monday. And this is just one life-saving example, but it shows that Toronto is already a smart city. We're already doing a whole bunch of things, and I can give you lots of examples. Let's talk about a few of them. Toronto Water uses a smart ball. This is robotic technology that we use in the water system to identify early signs of failure, and then we go and remediate those failures, those potential failures before they happen. This saves us time, this saves us money, and this saves us from disrupting people. Municipal licensing and standards, and I have Tracy Cook sitting at the head table here with me, who leads that division for us, worked with Mars to develop probably the most innovative ride-sharing, licensing, and regulatory model in the world. And we did that in collaboration with Mars, right? Transportation services, lots going on there. We have a big data innovation team using data sources from internally and externally to better manage our roadways, anticipate operational and infrastructure needs, and deploy we've deployed smart traffic signals and use algorithms to change those signaling routines in real time. We have a Green P app. By the way, whenever I talk about smart city, that's the first thing people tell me is they love the Green P app. So we have a Green P app, but it's a step, right? It's a step. So you can pay for parking using your smartphone. And I think for me, most importantly, is when you're late, you don't have to go back to your car or go back to the machine to add time to it, right? You can do that right from your phone. Has anybody here heard of the Sidewalk Toronto situation that we're in? We're going to be collaborating with Sidewalk Labs, a sister company of Google, to build the most, use digital technology and create the most technologically advanced neighborhood anywhere in the world. And last week, Rob Meikle, who's sitting, I think, at the table over there, deployed our next generation open data portal, really further cementing our position as global leaders in municipal open data, right? So, and we've been leaders before that, but we've now deployed an open data portal, which makes it more data available, makes it searchable functionality, really easier to use for citizens who want to do good things with the data that the city has. So I hope I at least convinced one of you in this room that you should raise your hand when I ask you if we're a smart city, because I think we're actually doing a lot of smart things, and I think it's important to recognize that. And by the way, I think it's typically Torontonian or typically Canadian, maybe, to think that we should do more, and we're not really that good, and we're not, we shouldn't promote ourselves. We should be shouting from the tallest buildings that we're already doing all these smart things. We have the best paramedic service in the world. Again, best people, but also the best systems using data and technology to make it the best, right? So all of these things are really important. Smart city, I call it Smart City 1.0. So we need to deploy all these technologies and all these sensors, and there's a whole bunch of things we can do to make sort of that first generation transformation happen. So we're doing that in infrastructure, energy, environment, in mobility, managing buildings, city planning, water, solid waste. We're using connected data and technology all over the place. However, However, we still face significant challenges. So how are we sort of addressing our significant challenges using those strategies? So we're deploying all these things. Are we doing it in such a way that we're actually going to solve our big problems? Right? And let me talk about some of those big problems. And these aren't news to you, but we have some big challenges. Great city, best place to live in the world, highly ranked, but we do have some challenges. Quickly growing population. We have 100,000 new residents coming here every year. Unparalleled diversity, and because of that unparalleled diversity of needs. Right? We have new Canadians, all sorts of different people coming to the city. Growing gap between rich and poor. So we used to talk about 3 classes of people in Toronto. Now we more often hear about 2 classes of people in Toronto. Mobility, capacity, and congestion issues, I think you all know about that. Housing affordability, housing access, massive, that's a really big challenge in Toronto. Aging infrastructure, where are we going to get the money to upgrade that aging infrastructure? Changing climate and the resilience challenges that result from that. Poverty, homelessness, the list goes on, right? So we actually have some challenges that we do. So what are we going to do about those challenges, right? I could talk to you about sensors and robots and drones and LED lighting and wearables and a myriad of other technologies. And those things, by the way, would all be important, and those are all strategies that we should be employing right now to solve challenges. I'm not suggesting that any of those things aren't good ideas in the right circumstances. But I'm not going to talk to you about those things. What I'm going to talk to you is about what are we doing Smart City for? What's the reason? Right? We're doing Smart City for people. Right? We're doing Smart City for you. And we're doing it for our businesses, our visitors, and most importantly, our children. Right? So we're trying to create a better city for our children, for the next generation, right? We're going to build some really interesting things. It's going to be available for the next generation. So I want to talk to you about what I sort of call Smart City 2.0, which is, yeah, we've hit some of the infrastructure pieces. We need to keep working. Now let's hit some of the people things. Let's try to figure out how can we really direct those resources towards making people's lives better. So how are we going to do that? 4 things I want you to think about. 1, social and economic outcomes, right? How can we channel those resources that no one gets left behind? 2, how do we overcome barriers to education, social and cultural participation, digital economy, employment? I'm going to talk a lot more about that. 3, how do we drive towards a city where everybody is civically engaged? So how do we actually participate and engage with our government in a more effective way so that we're making good decisions and we're reaching the people that we need to? And 4, how do we become more caring and responsive to the people who are in need? Right? So how do we make it a more livable city? I love the technology stuff, but I want, the city I want my kids to live in is the Smart City 2.0 kind of city. So let me offer a definition for you that maybe is a little bit different than some of the definitions you've heard if you've been in the smart city space and smart city ecosystem. A smart city enables their residents to become smarter by breaking down systematic barriers to achieve meaningful outcomes for residents through the use of data and connected technology. Right? That's a definition I think I can get behind. Probably still too complicated. Maybe a smart city is just a city that makes its residents smarter is a smart city. Right? Maybe that's the simplest definition we can do. Like, what if we sort of help our people be successful? That's probably a smart city. Let's use all of those strategies to help people. I know a lot of you came to hear me talk about the federal government challenge, and I'm going to get to that. But before I do, I'd like to just give a nod, and I don't know if there's anybody here from the ministry, but I would like to give a nod to the Government of Canada. Because I think they actually did a good job on the Smart Cities Challenge in terms of encouraging a narrative around becoming a smarter city that was really necessary and needed, right? And that is, a catalyst to, they created a challenge, which really for us was a catalyst to long-term, integrated, citywide sort of thinking about how do we use these opportunities to help people. And for us, some outcomes that are really important to us in terms of the challenge, but in terms of our smart city strategy in general, would be these things. It really prompted city council, staff, and I think all Torontonians think differently about how data and technology can be used. We know it can be used for entertainment purposes. We know it can be used to help us navigate the city a little bit better. We know about some of those opportunities, but what can we do with data and technology to actually make life better for example, vulnerable citizens in our society? 2, it enabled solutions focused on social and economic outcomes, right? So it wasn't just about certain infrastructure outcomes, about social and economic, right? 3, broke down internal and external silos. So the great thing, and I didn't expect this when I was asked to take on the Smart Cities Challenge, but I had hundreds of people call me from, senior people from industry across the city, from a lot of the companies and a lot of the people sitting here in this room called me and said, how do we get involved? We want to work with you. We think our corporate mission is aligned with the things that you're talking about, Michael. Can we work together on this? And of course, the answer was yes. We're going to work together on all of this stuff. By the way, academia, students, community partners, Everybody wants to work with us on this, and we're really excited to get going. But the fourth thing, and I think probably most importantly, is it inspired everybody to think big. Right? So I know we talk sometimes, but you can't fix everything at once. So, but if we think about the big challenges, and we're going to do lots of little things to solve big challenges, but let's think about those big challenges in a smart city context. So that, I think really the smart city challenge was about, convinced us that actually this is an opportunity to really be big in terms of the sort of largest and biggest transformational impact that we may ever affect on the city of Toronto. And really, and a lot of people here I think are in my generation, probably a lot of younger people too, but it's really our generation's chance to leave a better city for our children, right? That's the opportunity, right? And yes, it's about technology and data, but that's the opportunity. So let me tell you about Toronto's approach and the process we use for the challenge. We tried to do as much public consultation as we can, not just because that was how they're going to evaluate, because it's the right thing to do, right? We didn't want to make this decision at City Hall, what are we going to propose, right? We have lots of ideas at City Hall. But we really wanted to go and ask people what they think. So we did an online call. We had surveys. We did a call through our public library system. We had several hundred responses to a survey on paper. We had 137 formal project submissions through, an online form that you could fill out and tell us what you wanted us to propose. But more importantly, and those were necessary steps, but more importantly, we went out and talked to as many people as we could, using as many forms as we could. So we had a very successful panel session at the reference library, and I see Linda from the public library here. We had a very successful session at the public library, which we simulcast using Cisco technology to a whole bunch of other libraries in the city, very well attended. We had several sessions with the the Toronto Region Board of Trade and the Smart Cities Working Group. That's been a great vehicle for encouraging the right discussions. We had many meetings with community groups, too numerous to mention, so I apologize if you're here. We met with all of the academic institutions in the city. We participated we had an Indigenous community workshop. We had C-suite, private sector roundtables. And importantly, and I mentioned ideas at the city, we had lots of interaction with division heads and other leaders at the city. And really gathered ideas. So through all of that, and I want to give you the insight how we got there, through all of that, we ended up with a challenge that we pitched to the federal government a couple of weeks ago. And you can go, by the way, on our website if you want to read the full text. It's all up there. You can go read it. But the challenge we decided to go after, and I'll read it to you, we will significantly reduce poverty among children living in older, high-rise rental communities by empowering 100% of their families with the digital tools necessary for a more prosperous future, high-speed internet, the means to increase digital literacy, and a smart platform to connect to economic opportunities. So that's what we're going to do, right? And I'd love it if we won $50 million to go do it, but we're going to do it anyway, right? We're going to do it anyway. Yeah. Just don't tell anybody in Ottawa that, because they may not give us the 50 million. By the way, it was an amazing process in that we had really good time engaging with everybody out in the community, but what was amazing about the end of the process was that everybody in Toronto that we talked to was universally aligned around this challenge, and that this was a doable, achievable, manageable challenge, and that we should go and solve this problem, because we can, right? Because we can, right? So let me tell you a little bit about the towers. 500,000 Torontonians live in older high-rise buildings in the city of Toronto. That's almost 1/5 of our population. It's probably a little bit more than that, actually. There are about 1,200 towers that we're talking about here. So these are the older apartment buildings, most of them built before 1985, post-war towers. They really are the core of Toronto's affordable housing stock, right? They really are the core of our affordable housing stock. This is where you go when you need affordable housing, right? And as you know, we have a long list for community housing. They're home to many larger families. They tend to be slightly larger units than the units being built today, so they're home to larger families. They're often the first place where new Canadians come and situate themselves when they come to Toronto, right? So there's lots of new Canadians there. They also have a higher proportion of youth than other parts of the city, right? So that means they really represent the future of our city as well. So they're an important part of our city. These towers were designed as Tower in the Park. You know the clusters that I'm talking about if you've driven around the city of Toronto. They tend to be isolated physically, right, from lots of services, transportation, education, childcare, other programs that link residents to their communities, make it easy for them, those residents, to have those opportunities. So as a result, a lot of those residents, a lot of those families have to overcome more barriers than the rest of us here in Toronto. In addition to being physically isolated, they're often digitally isolated, right? And that's the problem I want to sort of focus in today, because I think we're not going to be able to move the buildings, right? And we've got lots of work to do around remediating the buildings themselves. But what can we do quickly? We can work on digital isolation, right? Why are they digitally isolated? Because they tend to be lower income families, right? And internet and access to the digital world is expensive, right? It's expensive. So that's really the situation that we're dealing with in those towers. Let's talk a little bit about the kids, because you heard me mention child poverty in the challenge statement. So you might be saying, well, what's the connection between child poverty and the digital divide and so on? Well, really, it's the caregivers, right? So what is this child poverty situation? Did you know, and I didn't know before I started working in public sector, do you know that 26% of the children in Toronto live in poverty? 26%, right, of the children in Toronto live in low-income households. We're a wealthy city. You just told me it's the greatest place in the world to live. 26% of kids live in poverty. In the towers, that number goes up to 43%. 43% of the children living in the towers live in poverty, okay? That's 50,000 kids, or twice the population of Collingwood, just to give you a sense. So that number shocked me, and it's tragic. So why does the digital divide matter? Well, it's quite simple, actually. The nature of work is changing. According to the Institute for the Future, 85% of the jobs that will exist in 2030 have not been invented yet. So without technology skills and enabled by high-speed internet, families living in poverty will continue to fall further behind, right? The gig economy exists online, and if you're not there, you're not going to be part of it. It's as simple as that, right? So what are we going to do and how are we going to do it? It's clear. The how, for me, is clear. We're going to build on existing relationships. We have a tower renewal neighborhood revitalization program. We have a tower renewal partnership. I think Graham Stewart is here. He's the champion in the city of Toronto. He's a hero in terms of the tower renewal partnership, and he's already been working on this for many years. But how are we going to do that, working with Graham? We're going to do it through three things, and I mentioned them. Digital access. Let's mobilize and partner with industry to close the divide once and for all. Lots of investments being made in 5G and fiber and other things. Let's collaborate and actually close the divide as we make those investments. Let's scale that affordable internet access, working with the partners, right? Working with the telecommunications industry, working with the owners of the buildings, and working with other partners to make that happen. Digital literacy, we're going to partner with the organization that's probably the world-leading organization on digital divide and digital literacy, the biggest, busiest, and most respected public library system in the world. Who do you think that is? The Toronto Public Library, right? So if we were going to pick any organization in the world to do literacy and digital divide, we would have picked the Toronto Public Library. So that's going to be it already is a crucial resource for residents struggling with digital divide. We're going to continue to work with them, and we need to expand greatly what they do and bring those services to a greater number and more targeted set of community residents. They have 100 branches. Kids already in those communities, by the way, use the services of the library. We've been to some of these libraries. Kids come there and use the internet until 8 o'clock when the library closes, and then they sit outside until 10 o'clock when we turn off the Wi-Fi, right? So that's already happening, right? For many kids, this is the only place where they have access. And we've done surveys, and for many kids and many people that go and use those services, this is the only place they have high-speed access. And the other thing we need to do, by the way, and I'll do a quick plug, and I know I'm running out of time, I'll do a quick plug on awareness of digital literacy. We're doing Digital Literacy Day. I think many of you are involved in partnering with us on that. That's on May 31st, so go look up more information on that. The third thing is the platform. So we're calling it the Smart Connected Communities Platform. So the first thing about the platform is, people ask, well, what is a platform? What are you going to do with a platform? The internet can be a very difficult place to navigate. There's so much happening for people who are looking for specific resources, who have specific needs that are local to their community. It can be difficult to obtain those resources and fulfill those needs. So what we need to do is provide a broad, public, private, NGO, and stakeholder-driven platform. So we need to make sure that we're offering opportunities and services to people in a very targeted way, in a very data-driven way. And this will bolster digital connection with physical intervention. So let's bring services using the digital platform to enable that. One thing I do want to say We've been talking a lot about towers and low-income families and children living in poverty in the towers. The ideas and the platform and the structures that we're talking about here today can be brought to other communities in Toronto, other communities in Canada, other communities in the world. So this is scalable, right? So we're going to do this because this is where the need exists, and then we're going to take it to the rest of the world, right? And we're going to be the experts in poverty reduction, and cities are going to come to us and ask us how to do it. One thing I want to say is owning the data. It's really important for us to own the data, the public, you, to own the data. This platform, it's the service delivery vehicle, but it's also the way we will identify needs, adapt to changing needs, and measure success, right? So that's actually the power of the platform. If you think about it, it's the opportunity to use the data that we generate through the platform. We think this will be the turning point in Canada, combating digital divide and economic divide. Like, we really think this is the lever that we need to pull, and this will become the de facto standard for doing that. We have thousands of ideas about how to leverage the platform. Like I mentioned, all of the roundtables we had and all of the really interesting private sector discussions we had. We literally got thousands of ideas, and I don't have time to go through all. Maybe a couple of use cases. Imagine a working mother who needs to upgrade her skills after being out of the workforce. She would be connected with appropriate development support and child minding in the community, allowing her time to study. Right? Imagine a community service worker who's looking for support for an elderly individual. Right? What if we could just quickly connect that community support worker to a volunteer who wants to do something in that building for a couple of hours a day? Imagine city staff looking at patterns of service delivery and service usage, not having data to understand how people can navigate different service opportunities and solve problems, and that city staff being able to quickly build pathways to better outcomes. Imagine using machine learning and advanced analytics and AI to really look at what people are looking for on the internet in those communities, and just the way that Amazon tracks what you do on the internet and provides options for things that they think you should buy from them. So those are just a few ideas. There's hundreds of ideas. What do we need to do? What's the call to action? So what am I asking for here today? And I had to ask for something, right? I think there's really four things that I think if you're going back to your organizations and you're thinking about, well, how can I sort of embed this thinking into what we're going to do and what outcomes we're trying to drive? Number one, make inclusion intentional. Make inclusion intentional. As we think about what we're deploying in our services, let's think about inclusion. Let's think about who's getting left behind. Mobilize industry and non-traditional partners. So we need to bring non-traditional partners. Graham knows this really well. We need to bring non-traditional partners to the table to solve problems in those communities. It's not going to be the people you think they are and the companies that you think it is. Develop innovative strategic partnerships. So we have to change the way we engage with you. We have to change the way we get together and solve problems. We got to do it faster. We got to do it in much more innovative ways than just standard old-fashioned ways of solving those problems. And of course, the overarching thing is break down silos everywhere. So I'd be the first to say there's silos at City Hall, but there's also silos between City Hall and other aspects and other members of the community in terms of private sector, NGOs, not-for-profit sector. I'd like you to think about how you could play a role in doing those four things and how we can work together to create a truly smart city. One of the most interesting and exciting parts of my job is the opportunity to work with you, right? I mean, it's interesting. I love the people at City Hall, but the opportunity to get down and do these kind of sessions and have workshops with you, that's where we get some real power and real creativity, is the opportunity to collaborate with all of you in terms of solving this problem. So I've said this, and my assistant gets mad at me when I say this, but my door is open, right? And I absolutely mean that. Like, come and see me. If you have an idea, we'll talk about it. My door is open. I'll give you my card if you want to come see me. I'm going to wrap up in a few minutes. I'm being told that I should. But I did want to tell a little bit of a personal story. Why did I get involved in this? I mean, people thought I was crazy, And as I think somebody said, this marks my first-year anniversary as CTO here at the City of Toronto. I remember sitting in my office at TD Centre at the time, thinking, well, what about this job? I loved my old job. I worked with a great firm, Ernst & Young. I was happy there. What is this job for? I was really confused, actually. I remember walking outside one day, and this is true. I'm not making this up. I remember walking outside one day, just to get some air and some sun, and looked around, right, and saw, a couple of homeless individuals on Bay Street. A lot of traffic, right, a little bit of chaos, lots of noise. Street was I think Wellington was getting dug up at the time. The whole thing was a mess. So I looked around and said, well, what does this job have to do with this? And what I realized was that the city is a platform. The city is a platform to make change in people's lives, and I felt like I could use that platform to make a difference, right? So I felt I could use that platform to look at some of these problems and really try to solve some of these problems. And it's a massive platform, right? Think about the energy and people want to be here and they want to live here and they want to make it better. It's a massive platform. So I couldn't pass up that once in a lifetime opportunity to use that platform. But actually, I realized a few months later that it isn't about going to work at the city, right? We all have the opportunity to use that platform. Whether you work in the city or you don't work in the city, we all have the opportunity to use that energy and that platform to solve problems. So I would say, this is bigger than us, right? And let's try to work on it together. So in conclusion, you and your organizations, we can all kind of get together and solve some of these challenges. Low-income families in tower communities is one. We've got lots of other ideas. Come and see me. We need to work on this. And on this one, let's think about digital divide so that we don't leave these kids and these families behind. Because if we do that, another generation of that, and we'll really have a serious problem. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm not allowed to leave yet.
Thank you so much for sending up questions. We'll have time for a couple. So this is a pro and con one, I guess. What are key enablers to activate your vision, and what are the largest impediments for Toronto?
Obviously I'll talk about some of the things we talked about. I think the key enabler is our need to collaborate with a wide variety of partners to solve the problems. That's the core of it. That's the key enabler. We need to figure out how to collaborate with the private sector. We need to figure out how to collaborate better with the not-for-profit sector. We really need to get together as a city and try to solve these problems together. I do think, and I have to be careful, but I do think an impediment to that is our standard old-fashioned procurement models, right? So I think you probably have all been participated in some way on procurements at the city. We need to transform those models in such a way that we can do things quicker and we can do more innovative relationship structures. That's going to be the core barrier that we need to overcome, and we're doing that. By the way, I could talk about my other work, doing a transformation on that front, and we're going to work on that. But that is a barrier.
Great. A question from Waterloo. They are concerned about the lack of awareness of innovation that's actually already going on, as we sort of pointed out. How are you going to tackle this, or how are you going to let people know about everything that you're doing?
So, mentioned earlier that I think we're overly Canadian sometimes, right? In terms of we're quite quiet about our successes, and we're quite quiet about how great it is here. We all know it's the best place, and we all know it's one of the best places to live, or the best place to live. We don't promote ourselves nearly enough. I think within the City of Toronto and on the smart city agenda and on what challenges are we going to go after, we've been talking to partners as recently as yesterday about what types of digital signage and what types of, how can we put things in public spaces that communicate what we're doing, that really shout that we're solving problems, and we're solving problems together, and we're making headway, and we have the best services in the world, and that people should understand that and get involved in that. So we're gonna take communications and promotion really seriously when it comes to becoming a smart city. It's a core part of our success.
That's a good plan. Here's another one, because we like to look outside of ourselves. Which cities should we look for inspiration when it comes to becoming a smart city?
Well, obviously not Montreal. No, just kidding. That was a joke, just for the record. Montreal's doing a lot of interesting things, different things, interesting things. There are examples all over the world of cities that are doing interesting things in different domains. We've got, I like Singapore, right? Singapore ranks very highly on the smart city sort of rankings. They're doing lots of interesting things, but I think one of the things that Singapore does is they facilitate educational opportunities. The core of Singapore government strategy in becoming a smarter city isn't actually buying technology and using data. It's making sure that education at all levels is available to everybody very freely and very easily, right? That's a smart city in my mind. If you want to talk long term, that's a smart city.
Someone knows a lot about free Wi-Fi. They're asking, the Toronto Public Library is loaning out portable Wi-Fi devices already. How can this be directed to families in need rather than those who want free Wi-Fi at their cottage?
Great question. I get a lot of questions on this digital divide thing, and does the proposal mean that we should deploy a free public Wi-Fi network in every corner of the city? That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is a targeted set of programs, and there's going to be different strategies for different buildings, different neighborhoods, different communities, different circumstances, right? I think the Wi-Fi hotspot lending program has actually been a massive success, and has, according to our information, reached families that need that Wi-Fi service and desperately need it. Expanding that and making it more targeted, absolutely, that's an option.
Okay, last question. So you spoke about some obstacles that Toronto faces, the homelessness and those things, poverty, all of the. Do we have to overcome all of the challenges before we become a smart city? Is it taking care of all of the things, or are we smart after tackling one or two? When does the transformation office close? When?
Well, I'm 45, so retirement age. No, it's a good question and a little bit of a philosophical question. Is a smart city a mindset? Is it a paradigm, or is it an outcome? Is it a deliverable? I think it's a mindset. It's a paradigm, right? Like, we're always going to have challenges. We're going to have new challenges that we don't even know about yet. Right, so we should get working on all those things. Like, it's easy to say, well, there's just so many things, let's just not start. Like, it's just too hard, we can't figure those things out, right? We can do things right now, tomorrow, that help on all of those issues, and we can get going on it, right? So that's no reason to stop. There will be new things, so that's probably a reason why the Transformation Office would remain open. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much. Here.
Thank you.
That's it. Okay. Have a seat.
Okay.
Thank you all for those smart questions. Mr. Kolm, on behalf of the Canadian Club of Toronto, I want to thank you for sharing your exciting transformation plans for our great city. Based on your experience, it is clear to see why you were selected to lead the change that will make us a smart city in every sense of the word. Canada's largest city already enjoys the distinction of being one of the world's best places to live. The plans you shared with us today will secure and enhance our position on the world stage into the future. Torontonians and visitors stand to reap the benefits of a more effective and modern infrastructure. The social, economic, and environmental rewards that you let us know about will secure our enviable position as a leading metropolis. We wish you abundant success as you pursue and implement the city's transformation agenda. Thank you so much. Before we conclude, I'd like to thank VVC and MediaEvents.ca, Canada's leading event online space, for live streaming today. If anyone wants to go back and see the speech, it will be online right after today's lunch. We'll also have photos. And of course, the history of many of our speeches are there if you're interested in seeing some of the past. Of course, this is all at canadianclub.org. I would like to once again thank our sponsors, EY, Rogers, Bell, and Oracle, for supporting this event. We couldn't make it happen without your support, so thank you so much. So that concludes today's event. I hope everyone has a wonderful day and that we see you again soon.